Hi everybody, here we are, 7 o'clock just about on Friday night. Week 4 of quarantine. We've got a busy night tonight of cooking. I am going to make some Tagine Kefta, which is a Moroccan dish that is one of my comfort foods that I really love. It's kind of like Moroccan meatballs, and it is delicious. But first thing today is we're going to put my bread in the oven. So earlier I made the bread dough, and it's been rising and then punched down and then rising again. And actually they say to punch it down again and rise it again, but that's just too much to do and I'm gonna be too hungry. So we're just going to do what we need to do and put it in the oven. So my hands are all washed and clean, and what we're going to do now is to just gently push these dough balls down. And then we will get a knife to score them just a bit on the top. Just about a 1/4 inch. And I'll let them rise just a few more minutes, just so we get some nice doughiness out of them. So I'm going to put those to the side. And now we'll get on to making our kefta. So this recipe I'm using is sort of adapted from this Morad, New Moroccan, the cookbook, which is quite good and full of really good stories too. And then I sort of combine it with my own recipe. So first, we will be chopping up our onion. And this has 3 tablespoons finely minced onion, which I think is about a small onion. And how's everybody's day been today? Have you had a nice day? It's been really cold here. For me, at least. I'm ready for some nice spring weather to stay. Today was awfully chilly. And I admit, I did not really go outside very much. I've been trying to at least go out for a walk or a bike ride every day. But today, I guess I was a little lazy. Or just busy with other things. Actually should have used a bigger cutting board for this. This one's too small. Switch it up. And because this mixture is going into the meatballs, I like to dice it up pretty. I will say I mince it, I don't dice it, because I don't want big chunks of onion in my meatballs. So let's see. It said 3 tablespoons. Close enough. Okay. Now we also need half a teaspoon of minced garlic, which is not that much. So we'll just grab one of the sort of regular size cloves. And one trick that I learned when I took a cooking class in Morocco was to cut the garlic down the middle, and then on the inside is this little bit here. And this is especially if your garlic's getting on a little bit and you're growing some green out of there, you can remove this, and it is supposed to improve the flavor. So we'll mince this up too. I find mincing things and chopping them very satisfying. It's a good way to get out some of your aggression. All right, there's a nice mince. Fit that on in. So now, salt and spices. Now we will put in our spice mixture. Now, in the cookbook, it has the spice mixture kind of broken down into paprika, cumin, white pepper, and cayenne. I have my own custom blend here, so that's what I'm going to be using. And it has some, not really too heavy on the spices, though I like it a little heavy. I like it very flavorful. So maybe about half a tablespoon to a tablespoon. And I do eye things all the time, especially if I'm not baking. That's good enough. And then we want to put in some salt, about 1.5 tablespoons. And of course a little pepper. And then, of course, normally we would use some fresh parsley and fresh tarragon and fresh cilantro. I don't have any of that. So we will make do with our dry herbs. I am working on growing some fresh, but you know, that's going to take a little bit more sunshine and warmth. So there's a little bit of parsley. Smidge of tarragon. And let's see, what did I decide? I guess I'm just going to go without the cilantro. Now we will combine this with our meats. So I have here both ground beef and ground lamb. Before I went to Morocco, I thought ground lamb was really disgusting and would never eat it, and I thought lamb in general I didn't like the smell when it cooked. But since falling in love with kefta, I have come to appreciate it. This hamburger is still a little cold and frozen, but that's okay. Now with the excess, what I do is freeze it and use it to make tacos, which turn out really, really delicious. And my son devours them without knowing what I've done, what the secret ingredient is. But the secret ingredient is the lamb. So, now we'll just take our hands, and it is best to use your hands for this rather than a spoon or something like that. You just really can't blend the flavors doing that. You gotta get up in there. And yes, maybe it's kind of gross at first, but you can wash after, of course. And you do really want to combine the meats and the flavors. And also, we want to crack an egg up in here just to further combine everything. There we go. Kind of like making meatloaf. Oh, it's so cold too. That part I don't like. And just putting that egg in there really helps everything to glue together and be very well combined. So then get all the bits off your hands that you can. And now we'll make our meatballs. You're welcome, Marty. Thank you for the comment. If only you could taste this, because it's so, so good. So, so good. So now we make our little meatballs. I might have even diced the onion up a little bit more. It's still chunky enough to where I might like it a little smaller. But I don't mind onion, so it's no problem. Or as they say in Morocco, mushi mushki. No problem. And they say that all the time. I don't know what everybody's doing after this, but there are actually a lot of really great Facebook Live events starting around 7:30 or 8. There's some live DJs, love live music. After my cooking show last week, I listened to one of the live DJs, and it really made my night. It was pretty awesome. I was dancing, and it was fun. It was a nice thing to do when you're all by yourself and feeling a little alone. Not necessarily lonely, but alone. I'm also one of those people that sing in the kitchen. I'll spare you. I'll just hum. There's something about working in the kitchen that just brings that out in me. I have to hum a little tune while I work. Running out of meatball space. That's okay. Okay. Tighten up the seam here. And you could, of course, put your meatballs on a plate or something else, but why dirty another dish? Just use the cutting board. We can do it. Okay, we'll put this aside. I'm gonna wash up. Be right back. Now also, you can see that the bread has risen just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the oven because it does take about 35-40 minutes. All right, so our next task, we're going to shift over to the stove here. Looks good. We're gonna fry up those meatballs. So we will take just a So one thing with these meatballs, you can fry them up, or another great way to do them is to grill them. That's another very common dish in Morocco, is grilled kefta. So they have grilled kefta and they have kefta tagine. So let's see here. We're doing our kefta tagine. So we're going to heat just a little oil in our pan. I'm using just canola because it's a nice high heat oil, but you can use olive if you prefer that. Not a ton, just maybe about almost a tablespoon. And over here we have a plate with some paper towels on it for once we cook the patties, the meatballs, we want to drain them on the plate just so they're not quite as greasy. So we'll give this a minute to heat up and I can show you a few of the other things going on here. So this is the tomato sauce that we'll be using. So here's tomato sauce that we'll be using for the kefta that I made earlier today, because it does have to be made a little bit in advance. And it's a delicious tomato sauce. It's mainly tomatoes, a little garlic, onion, then it actually has carrot juice in it, which adds just a really nice flavor. Who would think, but carrot juice. Not quite yet. Not quite yet. So we're doing this over a medium-high heat, and it doesn't take long once you get them in. But you want to wait until your oil's good and hot. If the oil's not hot enough, the food actually sucks it up and makes it greasier. All right, now we're good to go. So you want to hear that sizzle when you put these guys in. In the cookbook, he does recommend pressing them down a little bit to make them more kind of like patties, but I like them as meatballs, so I leave them more ball-shaped. Get them all in here. If you don't have a big enough pan, you would have to do these in shifts. Okay, those are going. Hi, boys. No, it's not hot dogs, it's kefta. Tagine kefta. And what did you guys have for dinner tonight? So while we're doing this, and that's cooking, we will come over here. Let's see, can we see all the way over here? Not really. Okay, so we'll come over here, put our sauce to the side, and set up our tagine for the next cooking step. We can start actually preheating the tagine. Now, when you do the tagine, some people think goes in an oven, but no. Tagine is a stovetop cooking vessel or over a fire. And you want to separate it from the gas, from the direct flame, just for safety. But that does make it takes a little more time to heat up. So we'll start heating that up. Check on these guys. I like to get them nice and a little crisp on the outside. And then as you're turning them, you can kind of pat them down to get a little more of that patty effect going. A lot of meatballs to turn. Okay, so we'll move back over here with our tagine, and it's not warm yet. Be careful. But we can go ahead and put some of our tomato sauce in there. Now the secret ingredient to this tomato sauce is preserved lemon, which really gives it a special flavor. And actually tomorrow I'll be showing you how to make preserved lemons at home. Stay tuned to the Oak Bluffs Library Facebook channel. You don't want to put too much in here because you're going to put the kefta in there too, so that'll make it have more volume. And since we are going to be cooking the kefta also in the tomato sauce, it doesn't have to be cooked all the way through. So you want to cook the lamb mixture to about medium, which I think, we're right around there. So we can start pulling them off and draining them here. Alrighty, that's all done. So we'll also get our other ingredients prepared, which are eggs. So there's another dish, I guess, that's sort of like this that I only recently learned about, actually. I'm not sure what it's called, or maybe it's Polish. Maybe somebody knows the name of it, where you put the eggs into the sauce. Oh, tell me if you know the name of it. So we want to bring this to a simmer, so maybe we'll pump it up just a little bit. I'm very curious how the bread is doing. It's hard to see in there. So while waiting for this, normally I would start doing a little of the cleanup, just to be on top of things. Now in the cookbook, what he says to do next, once this is simmering, is to put in the eggs. But I actually like to put in the kefta and then put the eggs on top of that. it makes it look really pretty. I'm gonna check on the bread. Ooh. Oh, it looks really good. Need a bigger kitchen. Let's see here. So, I think some of the bread is ready to come out. So that we use to eat the Tagine Kefta. They actually don't use silverware in Morocco. They eat using their hands and bread. So I'm going to put the kefta in now. There is a good bit of it, so you want to arrange them pretty closely. And if anybody actually wants the recipe, I am happy to take a picture of it and send it to you. Ooh, we're squeezing in here. One left. Okay. Now, before we put our lid on, we are going to crack a few eggs. And those just go right on top. Okay, now we will put our tagine lid on. Ooh, and I see some bubbling starting there. And we'll cook that for just a few minutes. And while we're doing that, we'll come back over this way. There we go. And we will slice up a little of the preserved lemon that we put on top of the dish when it's done. So when you do preserved lemon, you don't use the whole thing. You just use the peel. So you want to take out this middle part. All the fleshy bits. So now we have the peel. this sort of into thin strips. Okay, so we have that ready to go. We'll come back over here. It does take a few minutes for everything to combine and for the eggs to cook. So while we're waiting for that to happen, we'll put away our meat. Leftovers. And we'll label those and put them in the freezer. Always lots of washing up in between. And of course, whenever you touch raw meat, you want to wash your hands again. Oh, the bread smells so good. I hope it's cooked enough. I'm a little worried now. So we can come over here and have a look at what's happening with our kefta. I've got very high-tech recording devices here in my film studio. So we want this to get a little more done. We're bubbling, but we want to see, you know, since we included the whites of the eggs, we do want to see some whitening there. So we'll give it just a few minutes more. In the meantime, you could also be putting away the rest of your tomato sauce, which this works really great for pasta sauce too. It is delicious. I have to do a public service announcement about the census. If you haven't done your census yet, which I actually haven't, you should do that. I'm gonna do it too soon, I promise. Very soon. It's on my to-do list. Getting there, but not quite yet. You can see that it's very, very close to being too much sauce that I put in. It's really close to bubbling up over the edge. But it seems to be containing itself okay right now. We'll hope it stays that way. And typically when this is served, you don't put it on a plate or into some dish. You actually bring the entire tagine over to the table and take off the lid, and then everybody eats from the same tagine, using their bread as their device. Which takes a little practice, but you do get used to it. And actually, you're not, when you're doing this, you take the bread and tear off a piece, use the bread, scoop it into your mouth. So you're not actually taking germs and depositing them back in. So even though it is a communal way of eating, it still is fairly sanitary. And in fact, in Morocco, all the restaurants have sinks that are outside of the bathroom that are just sort of right there near the tables, and everybody washes their hands before and after eating. Well, I might have it go just a few minutes longer, but I'm going to go ahead and put on our little strips of preserved lemon, just for the finishing touch. And there you go, Tagine Kefta. Thanks for joining me. Bye.